what we want to create is we want to create club and program on program, which is an opportunity for all the programs in the country that aspire to be the best in terms of their program versus others to, tee it up and give them a chance to kind of knock heads in an ultra-competitive environment.
Welcome to episode 386 of Alberta Dugout Stories podcast. I'm Joe McFarland, and this is a special edition of the show as we're going to have a few of these with so many major events coming up. We don't want you to miss a moment of the action, and if I'm being honest, I have a lot of fun putting these together and having some outstanding conversations, and that's exactly what we're getting this time around with Baseball Canada men's national team head coach and director Greg Hamilton. He's on the road with the junior national team now on an 8-day trek through the Dominican Republic. They'll be playing affiliates of the Blue Jays, Red Sox, Astros, Dodgers, Marlins, Brewers, Mets, Pirates, Padres, and Giants when all is said and done. It's a great opportunity for all 32 high school athletes to get to see what the next level of baseball looks like. I caught up with the Canadian Baseball Hall of Famer right after he returned from the junior team's extended spring training trip at the end of April. It's all part of what will be a very busy summer for the Baseball Canada architect, which also includes a new stop along the way with the Road to Okotoks and the Morneau Cup. Now, if you missed the news on Friday, Baseball Canada unveiling the full slate of teams heading to each of the regional qualifiers at the end of this month. Lethbridge and Vauxhall will be hosting the Prairie qualifiers May 28th to 31st, with 13 teams taking part in 3 pools. Pool A will feature the Calgary Bucks, HR Sports Academy, Okotoks Dogs White, Gulls Prep, and Vauxhall. Pool B will be Athics, the Calgary Premier Blues, Dogs Red, and Team Saskatchewan. And Pool C will have AHP, the Calgary Cubs, Parkland Twins, and Weber Wildcats. For Hamilton, it'll be another opportunity to see some of the best young talent from across the country as he starts piecing together future versions of the junior national team and more. We had a great conversation about what he's seeing right now and his excitement heading into the Road to Okotoks. Greg, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Fresh off the extended spring training trip, in your eyes, how did the team do?
It was a good trip. I mean, we at this age, sometimes it can get a little sideways on you when you're playing against pro players on a day in and out basis. But overall, we threw strikes, which is a good recipe for having some success. And for the most part, we took care of the baseball around those strikes. And overall, it was a really good trip. Great opportunity for the kids. We partner with the Blue Jays, use their player development complex as a home base. They get to feel like pros for 11 days, and really fortunate to have that partnership. And it was a really good camp.
I suppose it's a little bit different, especially over the last couple of years with the upgrades at Dunedin. That's got to be something else, especially for those kids who've maybe never been down there to get a look at some of the facilities and some of the infrastructure that's in play.
Yeah, I mean, it's no stone was unturned. I mean, it's first class right across the board. No excuses available from a player development perspective. That's for sure. I mean, everything you want to grow as a young minor league baseball player and to get better on a daily basis is there. They've overlooked nothing, and again, we get a great opportunity to kind of be a part of that and see what is there and experience it each and every day. And we're really fortunate and get a chance to play against the Jays. They're minor league players, many of which are alumni, or quite a few of which were alumni this time around of our program in Canadian baseball. So that's really cool for the next generation of kids to kind of see the ones before them that have done on, and especially when they're playing for the home team and the home country, it's extra special.
That's got to be pretty cool from your perspective. Is there's guys now, you mentioned it, as like a guy like Wesley Moore stops by and says hi and imparts some wisdom. Tim Piazentine most recently is a guy who's going up in the Toronto system now. Like, it's got to be kind of a rewarding feeling, but also a cool feeling to see these young kids latch on to the knowledge that these now pros are starting to impart upon them.
Absolutely. It's part of it's an extended family, as I always say, and it is. And, we're fortunate to have it in Canadian baseball. It's a small world. And, when players kind of move on and then, they're able to come back and just for the next generation of kids to see, that the dream's possible, it's real. And players have come from where they came from and kind of had the same goals and aspirations and dreams. And, in many cases, uncertainties that go around with development and goals and aspirations and dreams, and that they've been able to accomplish and they're living those dreams. It makes it real, and and their willingness to give back to the next generation is really impactful. So yeah, it's great to see them having success. It's great to see them come back and say hi, and it's really, really special when they do it with the next generation of player.
I won't make you single out specific guys, but was there anything anecdotal that you took away from this year's talent that you saw over the last week and a half or so?
Well, I mean, it's a good group of players. I mean, I think in general, from a pitching staff perspective, which I kind of point to, we threw strikes, which I think is really important, and consistent strikes and quality strikes. We're really good on the mound, and we did take care of the baseball, and I think it's kind of a testament to the growth of the game in the country. I mean, you get more and more kids that are coming in that are more advanced when they show up, and they've had really good programming leading into our junior program, and they're playing more, they're practicing more, and I think they're more prepared. So, we like to think we're able to add to that, which we do in playing pro games every day, but, it can really speed up in a hurry if you're not somewhat prepared coming in. So that was really encouraging. We've got certainly some kids that are, pointing to in a positive way to this year's draft, and obviously a left-hander out of BC that's pretty special, and it's been 4 years in the waiting, and this is kind of his time this June. So want to keep him healthy and pointed in the right direction, which he's certainly doing, and it was a really good trip for him as well.
Fantastic. I mean, your core was mostly 2008 born guys, but I couldn't help but notice that you seem to have a few 2009 guys who were making an impact as well. What do you think that says maybe about the future cores and what they might be capable of sooner rather than later here?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some younger guys mixed in, and as you say, the bulk of the players would be rising seniors, but we definitely do have juniors and sophomores mixed in, a couple anyway, and I think it's the nucleus that keeps us strong for a 2-year cycle, which is important because we have a world qualifier with this group this year. It'll be in October in the Dominican Republic. It's an Americans qualifier, so North, South, and Central America, which is not easy to get to the World Championships in 2027. So we've got to finish in the top 4, and then sometimes you qualify and then you've got to turn it completely over, which is not necessarily ideal when you're trying to do that within a calendar year and go on to compete against the best in the World Championships. And we'll definitely have some carryover with this roster and some players that will participate in the qualifier and then be seasoned and ready for hopefully the World Junior, if we're the U18 World Cup, if we're able to get there in 2027.
A lot of these guys as well, I noticed, happen to have big D1 schools committed to now. What do you think that says about the talent in this country right now, and the fact that they're getting not just your typical JUCO or maybe an NAIA, but there's some big schools attached to these names now?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there's growth in the overall talent level. It's certainly, I think there's a history of players having impacted the game in the collegiate world there at a high level. So, when kids do that, they blaze the trail for the next generation of players. So, I mean, some of those larger schools and programs have had success with Canadians, and they kind of reach back into that talent pool. And, I always say to the kids, though, in today's world with the transfer portal and the reality of collegiate baseball, I mean, getting a commitment is one thing, and you got to continue to progress. You got to continue to grow, and your game needs to be ready when you get down there. So that's a big part of what we certainly try to provide for them and give to them and emphasize to them that you get a commitment. But if you're going to go play in a Power 4 conference, or you're going to play mid-major and above out of high school, that's certainly a challenge, and you got to continue to take advantage of the time before you get there to grow and get better, because it's not easy to crack those lineups.
You've been doing this for a few years now, going down to the U.S. or the DR or whatever the case may be. Are you noticing any trends or things that these young Canadian athletes are doing now that maybe they weren't doing when you first started these trips up?
Well, I think, in general, physicality has grown. I mean, kids are focusing, more consistently on a year-round basis earlier on the sport of baseball. Training has really evolved in terms of physical growth and on the strength and conditioning side of things. So, it's just, probably more advanced players, as you kind of, the programming around them advances. And, it's not always, positive in the sense of, early specialization, but, a lot of these kids are doing it, and, when they're doing it, they tend to focus on baseball. They're a little bit more advanced than they maybe would have been before, and, a little bit more capable, at least in the short run, of being competitive in the environment that, that we're putting them in, which is playing against pro players in a pro environment. That's not easy. So I think they have a little bit more familiarity with what that looks like, prior to coming to us. And, they're getting out and doing those types of things a little bit more often, just not directly with the junior team, but outside with other programs as well. So I think I've kind of, you kind of notice that. You notice the player being a little bit more advanced in terms of the development curve.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, the eyes now head towards that DR trip. What are you looking for out of your players when you get down there?
Well, I mean, it's probably a fair fight. We kind of steer this program. We get down to the Dominican, we're going to be playing against players that are a little closer in age to and experience to our group, 18 and under players. The Dominican kids are by and large 16, 17, 18 with, some older guys sprinkled in, but that would be the bulk. So, as we always say to our kids when we get down there, we should be competitive on a daily basis. You can't really point to the fact that you're facing a big leaguer on rehab or, those sorts of things that happen on some of the extended trips and spring training trips that we do and fall instructional league trips that we do. So, we're getting closer to kind of putting a lineup out there and making sure the guys understand how they fit within a lineup and the things that they need to do in order to be successful as players. And then we're going to ultimately need to do to be successful as a program when we get to the World Qualifier. Dominican's an eye-opener. I mean, it's a very different landscape and environment. I think from a player perspective, you realize just how big the baseball world is and how competitive it is and how difficult it is, to ultimately get a professional uniform on and succeed at that level. There's a lot of talent, a lot of which won't even leave the island that, they see. And, you can see 75 to 80 kids in each complex and, they all have a tool or two and there's a reason why they're there.
Mm-hmm. As a coach with these trips, how do you gauge success? You mentioned that word before. Is it wins and losses, or are you focused on the process and making sure each player is getting better? Or maybe it's a mix of both. Walk me through your mindset on that kind of stuff.
Well, it's a process of development that we focus on. I mean, I think I've always believed that if you do development right and you're patient and persistent with development, then you're going to end up with the best possible outcome in terms of performance at the end of the curve. So we are accountable to performance in our program at the end of the curve, which would be a world qualifier or a world tournament. But, the remaining cycle, which is the vast majority of it, is about getting athletic and projectable kids, physical kids that have a chance to grow and play the game at a higher level into the program and give them an environment where, they're forced to embrace the speed at a higher level and they grow and they mature. But at the same time, you want to protect them in the development side of things. And because most of the kids you bring in have had a lot of success, relatively speaking, in the worlds that they're coming from. And for, I don't want to say the first time, but, they rarely fail physically. And in the world that you're putting them in against pro players in a very foreign environment, they're going to fail. So you've got to protect, the confidence side of things and the mental development side of things, so that they don't kind of go from thinking this is going to be a straight line and it's to success to thinking, oh boy, maybe I'll never achieve success at this level. So that's, for us, it's progression and growth and, making sure that players understand that, what their strengths are going to be within the game and maybe conceding comfortably some of the areas that may not be strengths, but understanding that, what they bring to the table is going to be good enough if they really bear down and focus on it and commit to the process of development.
Mm-hmm. Is there a lot of value in that idea that sometimes it's good to fail? Like, as weird as it sounds, but being able to understand that failure is a part of the process and that you need to be able to overcome that. And there's a piece of resilience that when you build that, it's going to serve you well later on down the road.
Well, 100%, because, each step on the ladder, I mean, it's a separation process, right? So, the fact that these kids are playing pro players in a professional environment, I mean, if we were winning every game, we would probably, the pro guys would be wondering, who they may have out there. So I think you kind of you get them to understand that this is not easy. You get them to understand it's not going to be easy when you change dugouts and put on a pro uniform, or, when you graduate high school and move on to collegiate baseball. I mean, it's an ultra competitive environment that, people expect performance and results around. And, we try to, get them to understand that that performance and those results come usually as a byproduct of having gone through the challenges of failure and ultimately not performing from a results perspective. And it's how you handle that and how you deal with it, and how you process it, and ultimately how you figure out who you are within that is going to allow you to succeed. I mean, it's a very good barometer because you get a chance to look around and figure out, okay, these are my attributes, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and you're not always, strengthening your weaknesses, because your weaknesses may not be an element of your game that's worthy of a lot of time spent on it. I always say to kids, I mean, you're going to spend hours and focus and time on your speed and your running when your game is based on, some power and physicality, and you're not really a runner anyway. So, I mean, let's just be intelligent around the speed that you have, as opposed to worrying about it as a limitation. It can be, built in as a positive. It's just not going to be a positive in the sense of changing the game or an element that's going to be that impactful in your game. So, I mean, again, success is a byproduct of failure, certainly when they're young athletes.
Mm-hmm. And a great example of that, I mean, I was watching a really interesting video about Josh Naylor and his ability to steal bases. Like, there's a guy who is in the lower percentiles as far as speed, but somehow finds a way, right? So it's about keying in on some of those things that you can do within yourself to better your team, right?
Well, 100%, right? I mean, he understands who he is as a base runner. If you watch Josh, he gets great reads. He's opportunistic. I mean, he picks his spots. He does get really good jumps. He has very good feel. And he plays well within, the speed that he has. So, again, that's also explaining to kids developmentally that, baseball is also, not a straight line sport in a lot of ways. And even stealing a base, I mean, it's your jump as much as it is your speed in many ways. And if you get a good read and a good jump, I mean, that's 3/4 of the battle. If you get a poor read and a bad jump, you can be pretty fast, but you're probably still getting thrown out at higher levels. And it's the same thing on defense. And, you can run fast in a straight line. It doesn't mean you're going to be a center fielder. You got to get good reads, good jumps, good first step, good angles. I mean, all those sorts of things that, you've got to get kids to understand, right? I mean, you got to get them to understand what they bring to the table, what they do well, and even what they do relatively speaking at a young age is not going to be refined. So, you need to spend a whole lot of time refining what your strengths are, and then understanding your limitations, and not sort of being limited by those, but understanding what the limitations around them are so that you're intelligent within those.
Absolutely. You are a busy man, and it's going to get a little bit busier because you got a brand new tournament coming up with the Morneau Cup and the Road to Okotoks. On a personal level, how excited are you to see this idea come to fruition and have an opportunity to see these guys with a bit of a different lens?
Very excited. I mean, I've had the opportunity to be the caretaker for a while of the national team program, and the feelings that come with, putting your country's jersey on with Canada across the front and standing out there in a big game environment, or in any environment where you're representing your country against other nations. And next is kind of province on province. And, what we want to create is we want to create club and program on program, which is an opportunity for all the programs in the country that aspire to be the best in terms of their program versus others, to tee it up and give them a chance to kind of knock heads in an ultra competitive environment. It's not a showcase from the perspective of if you have a good day and teammates don't, that's a good day. It's a competitive environment where it's about representing your program, representing your teammates, and trying to be successful and trying to win best on best across the country. And we're not picking winners and losers and defining, hey, these are going to be the 16 teams that are going to play in this tournament. We're looking to engage the nation in terms of competitive regional qualifiers to ultimately see who the best are on a given time frame to get there. And, the top 16 programs will survive from really, really competitive environments around the country through qualification.
I suppose from a junior national team perspective, and as a guy who's into that realm of player development and watching players and see what they do, that's got to be a big focal point, whether it be at the end of May or whether it be in July, is you get to see how these guys stack up against one another and teams stack up against one another, and in a competitive nature versus, to your point about a showcase or about doing things in a cage or that kind of thing. You get to see them in something that they truly have some skin in the game, so to speak.
Absolutely, and I mean, you ultimately it comes down to that, right? We both know. I mean, if you're going to succeed, I would say it's a team sport. It's not an individual sport. So I mean, you've got to be able to really understand how you fit within a team, and you've got to be able to compete. You've got to be able to make plays or pitches or get hits when it's timely and when it matters, and you've got to handle adversity and pressure, and you've got to be a teammate, and that ultimately leads to the best memories too. I mean, you put your work in, you practice, you have goals and aspirations, but they're team oriented. I mean, if you succeed as a group and succeed as a team, you're going to look back and reflect pretty positively on those experiences, and we want to create a national champion environment, a national championship environment where the country aspires to be the best from a club perspective with the name across your jersey. And, it's going to show, in a given environment who can compete. And, ultimately everybody's looking for competitors, people that understand team and understand, what it means to try to win and aspire to win, and we're going to create memories and for these individual kids and for programs, and on an annual basis, who is the best annually. I mean, that doesn't mean they're the best, perpetually. It means on an annual basis, this particular year, this is the best program in the country, and we want to create a minimum environment for kids to experience that and programs to experience it.
As a coach and evaluator of talent, does this maybe flip the switch a little bit for you? Do you foresee this changing maybe how a player gets evaluated, for example, because someone who might be throwing smoke in a bullpen all of a sudden might not be a good teammate, or might, have bad visual cues, as an example, in a big moment, might get knocked down. Conversely, someone who might have a bad BP, as an example, but seems to show up every time they come up in a big moment in a national championship, that might sway things for you, no?
Absolutely. I mean, 100%, right? I mean, you're looking for winners. You're looking for players that love to compete, that understand who they are, and they're comfortable in being part of the team and care about their teammates and play to win and are selfless in that goal. And this is gonna bring this to the forefront, because these programs are proud of their name, the namesake, and they're proud of what's across their jersey, and you don't get many opportunities to go out there and truly play for something meaningful on a national level with your teammates and your program, where that's going to show who can and who wants to and who can on a given day, and who really cares, and all those emotions that kind of create special environments and special memories. And we'll see who handles it well and who maybe doesn't handle it well, and it doesn't mean someone that doesn't have a future. But I mean, again, you look for those things when you're putting rosters together and teams together, and I think it's got a chance to be something very special in Canada. We got a chance to put some people in the stands and let these kids play in front of fans, and let the country kind of come together in terms of the entire nation watching one another and seeing who's going to ultimately get there through qualification and competition. So very excited about the tournament.
Is there anything in particular that you'll be looking for during that tournament? Are there things that you're going to be paying closer attention to, maybe, given that this does have a different kind of feel to it as compared to your regular province on province battle?
You're gonna see how people handle adversity. You're gonna see how the young players, how they compete, and do they embrace competition or do they shy away from it? I mean, do they handle adversity, well within a team concept, or do they kind of go into a more me concept, which is challenging when you're trying to put teams together and rosters together? And there's exceptional talent that you will take regardless, and you will work with and be patient with, regardless of kind of by and large where they are developmentally. But again, competitive environments show you players that sometimes you may not initially see or stand out in kind of a workout type environment, where you see them work out, or you see them run, or you see them throw, or you see them take batting practice. I mean, there are those that look great in those environments or can look better than others, but there are also some that don't shine in that environment, that in an environment like this they're really going to show up, and you're really going to they get your attention. I mean, I always say there's some that get your attention and there's very few, but those are the special ones. The moment they walk off the bus, they get your attention from a physicality perspective, and And then there's by and large the rest that have to kind of show they can play and show that they have game and they can compete and they care and they want to play for their teammates. And, I mean, that's what we want to create. We want to, again, it's a national championship, with qualification from coast to coast. Programs take pride in saying they're the best. We want to create a medium from a Baseball Canada perspective to say, all right, let's see who is the best. Let's go out and compete against one another. And again, that's temporary and that's annual. And then, you go back to, the drawing board for the next year and, hey, this is what we need to do to get back at it again next year and hopefully win that national championship and, raise the Morneau Cup and get, have the road to Okotoks, get us to Okotoks. And, I think it's got a chance to be just a tremendous experience for a lot of players and a lot of programs across the country and for baseball in Canada.
We certainly are excited for that. One final question, Greg, before we let you go. As someone who had a front row seat to Canada's performance at the World Baseball Classic, how excited are you for the future of that tournament or the Olympics or anything else beyond when you get to see the quality of talent that we have from coast to coast to coast here in this country?
Very. I mean, it was, we went into that one this year. We hadn't got the monkey off our back, which was, to kind of get out of the first round and deeper into that tournament. And we were able to do it this time around, which is no easy task. And I thought we had a very competitive group, a group that really enjoyed playing for each other, really got what it meant to put Canada across their jerseys and play for their country and really embraced that and ultimately delivered and performed. And, we were very close against a really good U.S. ball club. And again, took them right down to the very end competitively. So it's with a group that, when you project forward, 4 years is a long time. A lot of things happen. People have to stay healthy and their games have to continue to stay strong and whatnot. But there's certainly a really strong core and nucleus of players that, we're excited about, that'll put that jersey on again 4 years down the road and hopefully take another step.
We are very excited as well. Greg, again, congrats on the success at the WBC. Congrats at all the success down south over the last couple of weeks. Continued success in the DR and beyond. And again, looking forward to seeing you in Okotoks in a few weeks' time.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Joey. Take care. Be well.
Big thanks again to Baseball Canada architect Greg Hamilton for joining us on the show, and thanks to all of you for downloading and listening. We will have another episode coming at you later this week, and another 2 episodes coming for you next week, so now's the perfect time to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of the action. As always, a massive tip of the cap to our Platinum supporters, the Okotoks Dogs, Under the Light Sports and Entertainment, and the Western Canadian Baseball League for their generosity in helping us tell the game stories in our province. For more on our tremendous teammates, head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support online, on social, and on air of Alberta Dugout Stories.